Well, welcome back, Martin, to the show.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
How's it going?
We're all the way down the coast on the south at Malaga now.
Costa del Sol.
Yeah. And wasn't Malaga one of the top places in the world to live, did you say?
Just come out in the Forbes list as being the top place to live.
You
on
go
the planet.
where?
So,
Yeah.
I had to come and check it out for myself.
Good. Well, the purpose of today is just to pull together the set of videos that we've had 9 months ago, I think.
Doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Well, after the last session was just 3 months after my court acquittal in Leeds, where the brethren took me for harassment and tried to nobble me by ganging up on me, all the Leeds brethren, and then the judge wouldn't have that, so 21 witness statements came into the court, and then 8 turned up to witness against me, but I was completely acquitted.
It's almost like they're testing the depths of your pockets.
Yes, well, not like, they jolly well did.
Yeah.
And then another case which came to fruition in November, just 2 months ago, they knocked up 330,000, and so my lawyers advised me that apart from the fact that I didn't want my son to be subjected to the interrogation of my KC, my eldest son, I was told that if I lost that one, I'd have to pay £330,000 of their costs. And I'd spend about 220, so £500,000 on a case, which actually all it achieved was the judge saying I could carry on my reform of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, but without using my family and business as a tool to do it. So use the brethren and use everything else, but it seems sensible
Not
enough.
involving the family.
Yeah, but I also have to go through all my videos and check there's nothing detrimental. So truth wasn't dominant. It was the fact that whether any of my comments were detrimental of individuals. But I'm not that sort of a person. I'm not a negative person, you know that.
Yeah, of course.
So why the brethren need to spend £500,000 establishing that?
Another attempt to undermine you, I suppose.
Absolutely, just take, as you say, money.
Yeah. Money is what talks, unfortunately.
Yep. Absolutely. So we had the videos 23rd, 24th of April last year, and then I went up we saw Mr. Grayling, remember, up at Terrassa?
Yeah.
And videoed him. And then I did a set of videos in Sydney, 25th to 27th of September, in a spot where I met the ex-Prime Minister, John Howard, with the Harbour Bridge in the background.
Very nice.
And now we're doing our final set, and I hope to be with Mr. Grayling tomorrow, catching the train shortly up to Barcelona. And what is it now? The 13th of January today, is it? Is that right? Yep, I think so.
I think so indeed. I'll just check.
Yeah.
Yes, Saturday the 13th of January.
Okay. So I've just watched, and just feel free to comment, I've just watched a video on Get a Life, which is on YouTube,
Right.
where ex-brethren are airing their experiences, which is a necessary exposure.
Very much so.
From a lovely guy who I met in Australia, in Melbourne, called Mick Dover, and his wonderful wife Debbie. And it's the most shocking revelation I've ever heard, heart-wrenching stuff, the abuse. The guy had potential. His father was a wealthy man who owned a massive building in Melbourne, called the Dover Building. They printed ministry for the brethren. They were printing for the press. Right. Very successful. Employed 100 to 150 brethren, and he was withdrawn from like that. And the whole thing, all the money and all the assets were just swallowed up by the brethren, basically.
Absorbed.
And
my word.
he's suffered ever since, the poor guy. He was withdrawn from when he was 22 in Melbourne. So it just gives an little peek behind the scenes into the wickedness of the system.
Even though he was providing employment for 150 families and with a successful print business, they decided that he'd outlived his use to them.
Absolutely. And that basically they had to, anyone that's a threat has got potential, they have to close down. because they're not prepared to submit their brains to
They don't want to risk
slavery, servitude,
thinking, yeah.
psychological abuse, really.
Anyone who doesn't conform
Yes.
specifically.
Yes. So you can't think independently or you become a threat. Anyway, this guy, just to quote one or two things, he said that being honest caused me more grief than if I lied. I was always honest.
Good man.
You
Good
and
for
me.
him. Yeah.
Good for him, yeah. And that's pretty much how you get by in there, by telling lies. And the lies that come up in my court cases are unbelievable. But the legal system don't seem to have the ability to expose lies, which is a pity, but the judges generally have a fair idea.
Yeah. It's complicated, isn't it? Because they have to try and see through the lies.
Well, I
and
think
to
the
work
problem
out
is,
what the truth is.
yeah, I think the problem is that the legal system raw on money. So if they're paid £500,000, in my case,
They'll see what they're asked
they
to
will back criminals, and they told me that. Yeah, criminals can get protected and supported just as much as an honest man. Well, that's wrong.
see. In the name of fair treatment,
Yeah.
but that's where people abuse it, isn't it? People see
Yes.
the loopholes and know the tricks to be able to appear to instigate their fair treatment, even though they're in the wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our countries are run by such a system. The legal system is so strong, as is religion. So I'm against. I'm challenging the legal system, and I'm challenging false religion or cults. I love true Christians, and Christians love one another. Scripture is very clear that we don't take each other to court if we're Christians. But if you're withdrawn from, you're suddenly the devil.
Yeah.
So they think that they can all join up.
So they throw you to the legal
condemnation.
system
Yes.
to be dealt with by
Exactly.
that. Yeah,
Exactly. How good is that?
Yeah. Doesn't
That's
sound very
run by
good to
money.
me.
So if you've got money, you can employ the legal system to
You
exterminate.
can buy your freedom and buy your protection and buy
Your Christianity. in
So
effect.
what about the innocent guy who doesn't have the money, who's just
Exactly.
been kicked out of the
Well,
brethren
that's-
and had his money taken away?
And I believe that a true Christian considers the poor, particularly so.
Yeah.
The Lord said, inasmuch as you've done it to one of these little ones, or least of my brethren, you've done it to me. So that he took the ground of being lowly.
Yeah.
So we need to take our cue from Christ. Even if you don't, that's just a value that
Yeah. It's understandable.
even an atheist holds,
Absolutely.
So Christians certainly should. So I don't
True
like-
fair treatment as
Yeah.
opposed to fair treatment to the guy who has the most money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he was told that, they had to hand the money in and everything. He was told that everything would be fixed as soon as his parents were restored. So his father was shoved out of fellowship in 1972, the same year as mine was. And they were, don't worry, when he comes back, everything will be sweetness and light. Of course, it was a sham. And they never got the money back. It was all squirreled away by the brethren. And he's actually named individuals. He's named important names like Gadsdens and Haleses, Burgess, McAlpins. These were the names that we revered in the church.
Right.
So it's the hierarchy. But I'm sure the rank and file don't know things are going on like this.
Yeah.
So if the hierarchy would become honest and repent and admit they've got it wrong, and just sit as one of the brethren and hand over, so to speak, the thing could be healed, I believe. I'm a positive person.
Yeah.
Some say it's so far gone it never will be.
They may have to find ways to return certain money to certain people that they took.
Absolutely.
And return
Vital.
the Porsche they bought with it or whatever.
Yeah, and just like Zacchaeus did, whatever I've taken from any man by false accusation, he was a tax gatherer, I return fourfold. So it'd be quite nice if they showed a generous
Do
spirit
it
for a
back
change,
4 times over, yeah.
rather than a taking spirit. And that's what I've tried to be simply when I was in that church, and since tried to help leaders. Of course, a lot of them took advantage of you. So here I am, but I don't want to change into being a tight ass just because I've been screwed for being generous, you know.
It's difficult, yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly. And then he got taxed to pay for people that he didn't employ. So he got tax bills completely out of the blue, which is a feature I've met with the other brethren,
Wow.
inside brethren. Suddenly get a tax bill out of the blue to ruin people.
So they send in a false tax return, basically.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but apparently he got taxed for £500 when he was born at the 3 months old. So it shows how crazy the whole thing is. As a baby.
Goodness me. Normally in the UK, normally you receive a payment when you have a baby,
Yes.
don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And then this big Dover building, there was a cigarette promotional advertisement on the outside, and his father had to get rid of his cell phones, the building, get rid of his business, computers and radios in cars, so he couldn't keep in touch with his staff. So all these rules they have, and it's just unbelievable the reasons they give to withdraw from people.
Right.
And they've changed now, so they allow phones now, allow computers, but they say the law's changed, kind of thing, which is blasphemy, of course.
Okay, that's interesting. So they're basically manipulating the rules for their own ends because they wanted a phone, maybe.
Exactly.
And so they said that the Lord has changed his mind and said that phones are okay now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, where's the consistency? Where's the stability? No wonder people have got mind problems in there. And then he even said, and this is publicly on podcast. What a brave man. The houses have got into everyone's wills and businesses, and if you leave, you lose the lot.
That is holding someone to ransom, isn't it? But the thing is that you don't choose if you leave; they choose if you leave.
Exactly.
So if
but they try and make it out that it's all the fault of you because you're a bad person, and your wife's had to leave you because you're a bad. So overnight, you've been contributing, devoted to it, and suddenly you're so bad.
Once you've generated enough money for them, then they cut you out of your own will, effectively.
They decide you're bad. In my case, it was Garth and Roger Edwards. Went to all the brethren, they shut me up, and then withdrew from me, and that binds on all 55,000 brethren around the world. So suddenly, you're out, shunned, finished,
Crazy,
destroyed.
shocking.
And the effect that has on you psychologically, I think I'm fairly strong. But
You must be, because you're still sitting here and you're still fighting. You know, it takes a special person to be able to do that.
Well, thank you, Martin. Thank you.
You know, a lot of people would have literally curled up in a corner and died, wouldn't they, over this? Because if you had everything taken away from you, including your loved ones, including your properties, your businesses, everything you've ever known, is removed from you through nothing you've done.
So he says that his father went crawling back because he ran out of money. So he went back in, and that was the end of. By then they'd secured the fortune.
That was a mistake.
Well, he was just reduced to that.
Well, yeah, he knew nothing else. He couldn't see a way out.
I've had people who don't understand Christ saying religion is for damaged people, but I do begin to wonder now. There's some truth in that. You get a lot of damaged
it's
people.
being used to damage people in this situation.
Yes.
By the looks of it.
Yes.
You know, speaking objectively.
But then damaged people go back in, where strong people survive outside.
Yeah. But at the same time, the damage was caused to them by those people by excommunicating them.
Yes.
And so they're stuck out in the world. They have everything taken away from them.
Yep.
They have the legal system aimed at them and funded from behind to say, go after that guy. Of course he's going to be damaged.
Yep.
You know, you're probably a bit damaged, but you're able to see over it and to recover and get better.
Well, you overcome evil with good, don't you?
What they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You know, but if you're at the lowest point and you can't see a way out, and then you've got the chance to go back in to something that's familiar, even though you know it's wrong, I can understand how somebody might do that through desperation and fear. Because the next step is you're going to be homeless living on a park bench.
Exactly.
So just swallow your pride, go back and say, okay, you were right, I was wrong. Can I have a job, please?
Yeah. I literally had that. A guy in Sheffield called Mike Hughes told me that the only hope for Jim Hutchinson, who was one of his local brethren he broke bread with, was that he failed to the extent where the brethren have to lift him out of the gutter the next morning. So he wanted him to drink so much that he was in the gutter, and then the brethren could come and lift him up.
And save him again.
I just took issue with that. I couldn't think that.
That's manipulation, isn't it? They manipulated him into that situation.
And then they encouraged drink and people drinking to it. And of course, all this mental torture makes you want to drink, you know.
And drive you to drink, for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely, or worse.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of suicides in there.
Oh dear.
And that's, I've just heard of one, Connor Glass. Now, of course, they'll deny it, and I want an investigation. But Connor Glass was an Irishman from Belfast. He phoned me about a year ago, just on the way to my court case. I want to commit suicide, I've had enough. And showed me the letters that his kids had sent to him. Basically, saying he was going to hell, a bad man, and all that. And he's died now a year later, young guy.
Oh, crumbs.
But I was under the cosh at that point from the Brethren, from the Leeds Brethren, there's court case coming up for harassment. So if I'd gone to the Brethren in Belfast and say,
You would have
please
been in more
help
trouble.
this guy.
Yeah.
So separation rule means that you can't stop suicides. And so I went to an Open Brother, to another group of brethren in Belfast, in Bangor, and he actually reached out to Connor
Right.
and stabilised him a bit at that point. But I couldn't go to Brethren because they get me for harassment.
Yeah.
And I've already raised matters publicly about a guy called Mark Lyon, who I'm worried has suffered the same fate. But of course, they always say, oh no, it was a heart attack, it was a perfectly natural cause, nothing to do with us. But these things need investigation. It's not for me to.
Well,
have
it
the
sounds
final
like
word.
it needs,
Yeah.
a professional who knows what they're looking at to actually
And this guy, dear
pass
Mick,
judgment on that.
yeah, he said in 2009, in desperation, went to the Royal Commission, and they said, "I'm sorry, the Brethren are not regarded as a religion, therefore we reject the application." So that they're not regarded as a religion. So why are they getting charitable status then?
So what are they regarded as then?
Well, I think they're a business.
Okay. A club.
But you can't have it all ways. If the Royal Commission say that they're not a religion,
Then why are they posing as one?
yeah, exactly. But this needs looking into again in Sydney and in Victoria, wherever it is, wherever Canberra, I don't know, in Australia. And then they put him into hospital, injected him, and told him that they'd obliterate his mind, and it was all backed by the Brethren. So it was injections
Goodness me.
to stop him remembering all the abuse he'd suffered from the age
So
of 5.
psychotic drug
Yeah.
injections,
And
basically.
he'd suffered serious sexual abuse, physical abuse, every type of abuse from the age of 5. And they even had him preaching in the big Melbourne room at the age of 7. 7? He must have had sense. And he said, he read that scripture, "Be sure your sins will find you out." So things catch up on people in the end.
Yeah.
And if we fear God, we'd accept that sort of statement. This was a young lad
Very young, yeah.
who was made a lot of by a guy called Alan Gadsden. And it is
He was
shocking.
basically treated like a puppet by the sound of it.
Absolutely.
Told what to say and put on the stage to say it.
Absolutely. So, but he hadn't so much about him. He knew his scriptures inside out, knew the ministry. He was so devoted, like I was. But devoted people
Can
who
be
can
used.
see through
Can
the
be
religious
used,
stuff and actually get through to the reality of Christianity, and they can become a threat in a cult because they're real and the rest is false.
They know too much.
So I say good men like Mick Dover need to step forward and make the difference.
Yeah,
And I back that man, totally.
definitely.
Yeah.
If everybody were to come forward and say what they'd seen and recount the truth,
Yep.
it would all be over very quickly by the sounds of it.
Yes. So suffice to say, in my case, and with my parents, John Hale said that there was an unhealable breach. In other words, it's unhealable. Never, ever will it be that. And in my case,
Isn't that a little bit against the religion anyway?
well, we always
Is it not about forgiveness and healing and
Exactly.
second chance?
Exactly. That's what I'd have
And
hoped.
repenting and
I thought so when
Yeah.
I was inside. I was never told this. And then the legal people for my family, who were the Brethren really, and my family were just part of the Brethren, so they kind of side with the Brethren. Statements made: the relationship has forever changed, incompatible, impossible for Lance to return. the family can no longer ever work together. So this withdrawal stuff is final. And I was so concerned about this that I went across to Australia wondering what it was all about. And after seeing John Howard and meeting one or two cult leaders from a cult by Tuba too, I met an incredible guy called Ray Carter in Bathurst, New South Wales. And he had dug deep, and he'd been very concerned about the Brethren, all the big sheds that were popping up in Bathurst and the area. And so he actually found what's called the Steward Christian Assemblies Act 1989 passed in New South Wales, whereby the Brethren were taken right out of trust law.
Right.
They're kind of God's people, and way above law. So means that the leader and the hierarchy are accountable to no one, the leader especially. So he's actually, there's no provision in this law for leavers, so he can completely screw leavers. So this withdrawal thing, I began to see, so they can say these things. So if two people came to see you and say you're not good enough for fellowship, and all the brethren say you're bad, that actually means you're completely in the hands of Bruce Hales, because he's the leader, and his family.
Wow.
And there's no redress to the law. So
the law can't touch them.
I spent £2.5 million trying to get through to here, and it's legalised. So all I can do is stand against this law. I went to the New South Wales Parliament and spoke to an MP there, and she'd written to the Attorney General asking to repeal this law. And it all came about because an MP, Fred Nile, who was meant to represent Christianity, told a lie in Parliament. Basically said it was for the open brethren, not for the exclusive brethren, not for the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church.
Wow.
And just like my withdrawal is based on lies and fiction, even Parliament
We're conned.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that needs looking into, and it has been to the extent that a letter's gone to the Attorney General. And I will, I think Ray Carter and I will go and camp in Parliament if need be until this changes.
Yeah.
Because there's a tendency, past 30 years ago, time passes. No, it's still very much used.
Well, if it's being
to the detriment of individuals.
Exactly, if it's being used to the detriment of individuals now, it needs changing, doesn't it? Surely the law should protect the citizen and not cause them to be a victim.
Well, exactly, and that's what the religion's doing. It's actually victimising people rather than protecting people. That's as clear as clear.
Which, to me, as an outsider, that feels like the opposite of what it's supposed to be doing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Can't have it all ways, can you? So, truth isn't dominant. This is the sad thing. My case proves that. It's actually, Lance Christian does not speak derogatory, and they're trying to get that to apply to anyone that has had to do with my business, including the Haleses, because they were consultants, sending in non-executive directors, reckoning the business was failing. So they were big business saviours coming in to save it. When I had a scheme to... I knew what I was doing, but they had to defame me, you see, to play to their narrative. And so it's all completely wrong.
There's clearly some kind of a script been written for this, isn't there, behind the scenes?
Yes.
We're going to do this, we're going to make him look bad, we're going to send in some people who are going to make it even worse, and then we're going to declare it was all his fault so that we can then kick him out.
Exactly. Job done. Wait for Lance to die.
Yeah, right.
And it'll all finish.
And hope he does like the day after he leaves, and then he's no longer a problem for us.
Yeah.
Let's
Is that true?
Let's hope he takes it so badly he kills himself.
And these people are supported by the taxpayer. Anyone earning money is supporting them because they've got charitable status. And I've applied to the British Charter Commission to open a charity free indeed to provide care and support for cult leaders. Oh no, we can't support you because we support the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church.
Wow.
And that's
so we support the culprits, therefore we can't help you support the victims.
Based on a dodgy presentation to the Charity Commission, the PASS Committee, at the end of 2012, by my brother Garth and Bruce Hazel, two senior brethren in England.
Goodness me. Contradiction after contradiction. Yeah?
Absolutely. So I just want the truth to preside. And
It sounds like this could all do with a bit of truth, an injection of truth to the whole situation.
truth should be dominant in any relationship, in any sphere of life. And that is
Religion
the
or
teaching.
not,
Yeah.
the truth should
Yeah.
always be first and
Of
foremost.
course. So, rather than bemoan it all, I've tried to come up with a strategy for 2024.
Yeah.
One is to raise awareness of cults because people don't know about them. They can be,
They're very clever at hiding.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's time to
Yeah.
open the curtains
Yeah.
and show everyone.
We're going to have to rely on the media for that a lot, I think. And then to restore personal and collective honesty. I think that's lacking in this democratic system we have in our countries. Personal honesty. If you're not prepared to be honest with your truth, with the truth and with yourself, you're going to talk bullshit and be relatively happy. So it's down to your conscience. I mean,
Well, as they say, if you tell a lie, you've got to follow it with a whole load more lies to back it up.
Exactly.
So it just turns into a web of lies instead
Yes.
of just using the truth, whereupon you don't have anything to hide. So you can
Exactly.
just stick to the same story because it's the truth.
and I believe a lot of people are caught up in it and don't realise they're being dishonest. So there's a certain amount of ignorance which I'll be the first to recognise. Like, if you remember Christ on the cross, there was a robber each side of him, and he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Well, that means that his conscience, he'd grown up in a culture of robbery, so he robbed, and it wasn't registering in his conscience. So
it
he
was
forgave him.
normalised for him.
And there'll be a lot of brethren like that.
Absolutely.
So the issue with
they
the
don't know
leaders-
they've been lied to.
Exactly.
So they're
Exactly.
standing up for what they
Yeah.
believe is a truth,
Yeah.
although
Yeah.
it's not.
And I stand up for all the genuine brethren in that cult, okay? Because I believe that the whole thing's healable if the hierarchy are exposed for deceiving, the lies of deceit.
They're good people trying to do their best.
Yes.
They're just wholly misguided.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we need to expose the hierarchy. The next is the PPE order accountability. There needs to be utter transparency in how the government, the Conservative government in the UK in particular, were manipulated, I believe, into giving orders to brethren, especially the £3 billion worth or more went, I understand, went via New South Wales, and it could have been they were taking advantage of this law,
Yeah.
which would have been illegal in the UK. But whether the orders went to Australia, were taxed in Australia and came back to England, they certainly did. They went to the Haleses and then came back and were distributed to companies in the UK. So again, the religion and business and the business world and government are all getting mixed.
Yeah.
Toxic mix of stuff which needs unravelling.
Smoke and mirrors as
Yes,
such
yeah.
to hide all the
Absolutely.
the traceability and
Absolutely. Yes.
the responsibility.
Exactly. And then the next thing is charitable status. We need a full investigation to see whether these guys are worthy of charitable status.
It pretty much sounds like they're not, though, doesn't it? To be honest,
Yes, I
it
think so.
should probably be removed
Yeah.
rather quickly and rather publicly.
Yeah. But I was in there till 7 years ago. I was in a lot of trouble latterly. 3 rebukes and 27 priestly visits. Not very nice at all. But I was there. I was one of them, and I don't want to stand above them. I still am prepared to say I'm one of them. So I'm not taking a high ground at all. I'm saying, look, please, I love you guys. I want to get you sorted.
Let's get the truth
Yes,
involved.
exactly. Yeah. And then, so it'd be nice to think that they were charitable. They deserve it because they're kind. Being charitable means being kind. To me,
Surely.
yeah. And then financial abuse. I mean, the way I believe I was withdrawn from the money. Set my business, get control of their affairs, put the control into my family. So
It's like we said before, I suggested you'd probably reached your peak value.
Yeah.
So you generated the most you were ever going to generate for them, and now you know, your age and your
Yes.
your situation means that, you know, time gives no mercy, does it? So
No.
in the end, you're going to become old and no longer of use. So now's a good time to get rid of you before you start costing anything.
Yes, and at the time they were shutting me up and thrusting me out, I was over in Bombay on business, and I was going to these suppliers there, and they just hold the parents in revere. The younger generation working in the business, the old man is there presiding over things, and it's just so India's ahead of Europe in that case.
Yeah, respecting the elders
Yes.
and the experience and the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, this was going on at the time that I was being shunned.
It's interesting they did it while you weren't there.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, a massive.
You're not even there to defend yourself.
A massive sexual case against me when I wasn't there. And my brother Garth went to the lawyers about a case between me and my business before I even knew I'd done anything wrong. Seriously. How could you
Very
say that?
underhanded, isn't
Oh. And then natural justice, breach of human rights, that needs big looking into.
it?
It's massive
Pure
issues.
victimisation of a person and targeting them and manipulating the law to your own ends
Yep.
is not what the system is designed for,
exactly.
is it? At all.
Exactly. And then there's what I call emancipation. So we need to emancipate people from psychological slavery. Because psychological slavery is today's form of physical slavery, which Wilberforce, inspirational man, great parliamentarian, outlawed before he died. And I've actually said to Parliament, I'm not going to go down until psychological slavery is outlawed, certainly in cults, hopefully in the whole British Empire what was, you know.
Oh yeah, it's time that people know they're being lied to.
Yes. And then we need to ignite an inside revolution, this may sound contentious, but against the hierarchy. And say, look, you've got to, if you're going to be in control of us, you've got to speak the truth, and nothing but the truth.
Well, if they won't come down and admit they're wrong and ask for forgiveness, then they need to be forcibly exposed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then education, we need to educate children. I think in colleges and universities we need courses on cults, psychopaths, narcissists, control freaks who just want to
Teach people how to protect themselves and to avoid being sucked into these things.
Want to say you're mental so we can get power of attorney or shove you out of your business, you know. I was a mental case in the eyes of the brethren. I mean, maybe I am. It's not for me to protest my innocence, but let the others judge, I say. Hold myself accountable. And then ethical business.
Or a small percentage have convinced the others that you have mental problems, therefore it justifies the whole movement against you.
Yes. And then ethical business practices. You know, I'm saying that hostile takeover bids, mergers and acquisitions are wrong, and if they are going to do them, they should be the complete validation of the business owner, the guy that's done all the hard work and not slog. And I think businesses should be taken out of the control of the religion and back into 100% family control. And there needs to be a whole lot of healing for that to happen. I believe I should get my business back and work on the sons.
Why not? It's yours.
Yeah.
You built it.
Thank you.
You know, you should get it back.
Yeah.
It makes logical sense, doesn't it? The fact that it was taken from you without your consent or permission or authorization, that's the definition of theft. If something is taken without your consent, it's been stolen.
And this is the whole point, that it's immoral what's happened, but they've found a legal route to take my business.
Yeah. So it's
'Cause they said
been stolen legally.
Yes. In the end, they
is
said
incredible that can happen.
The brethren managers would all walk out if I walked in. So the lawyers said to me, better if you just sold it, because it may have if you go back in. But why should a religion have the
if
power?
it was my business, I'd go back and fire them all and get a fresh team in who are going to actually work in the interests of my business rather than working for, you know, a puppet master behind that's controlling and manipulating everybody.
Good point, but of course they waited until I was 61, so I didn't quite have the same energy capacity to actually want to do that and
start again, basically,
do 10 managers' job overnight. So, a bit like the Dover business succumbed when Dover was withdrawn from. I've succumbed when I've been withdrawn.
They timed it well, didn't they? They chose their time very well. So we're getting at this moment when he's not going to be, he's not going to be able or willing to be as involved as would be required to save the situation.
So the all important thing is the withdrawal by the church. It's not, the legal system is just sweeping up afterwards. But the actual act of withdrawing from somebody, shutting people up, or in my case, rebuking PC visits, all that stuff, which I never agreed with, but there was massive pressure on me to submit. Once you become victim to the Brethren administration, they come in and sweep up your asses, try and leave you.
They manipulate the legal system to finish the job.
And try and leave you broke if they can possibly get away with it. It's not good.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
And then
it's amazing they get away with it. It's amazing that nobody has previously stepped in and stopped all of this, and obviously that's why it's fallen at your feet to pick up that task.
Yes. Well, I was very glad to be announced in Westminster House a couple of months ago as the advocate for outlawing psychological slavery in cults. So that gives me a mandate. And a bigger, I think a wider mandate than the power of my brother who leads the Brethren in England. And maybe a mandate with my involvement in the Australian New South Wales Parliament that covers Bruce Hales as well. But I hardly feel able, I'm only Lance Christie, but I feel that the forces for good, the governmental forces, will rise to this and support a stand, just like government supported Wilberforce in the end, after a lot of opposition when he outlawed, because the businesses were run by slaves, slave drivers, plantation owners back in the day.
Which is the equivalent of what's going on here, isn't it? You know, on a psychological level.
Exactly.
I'm
glad you can see that. Because it's not an easy message to get across. So, rather than bemoan all that's happened to me and get down and dismal, I've actually set up a business, LV8, was Elevate, as we've heard before, and I've changed it because ELEV8 was already registered, so LV8.
Right.
And fundamentally, that tackles what we all need in life. So forget religion, forget the legal system, just concentrate on ourselves. And every single person in the world, and this is generally established, this isn't me that's come up with this, it's generally established that everybody needs attitude, in other words, positive attitude. We can do this, lads. Above the line thinking. So judgment and victimisation is all below the line, but victory and forgiveness
and balance,
and outgoingness, these are all great features that we all stand for. So a good attitude, health, keep yourself fit. I feel pretty fit these days despite my age, you know.
Good.
And career, we all need career, something to do, something to occupy us.
Purpose, and that brings you money, that facilitates your life.
So finance, that's the other thing. But these in equal measure. So I'm saying that career and finance are only worth a quarter of life. So all the material stuff and the blessings that come with working hard, quarter of life. I'm saying that attitude and health, attitude includes mental health, but physical health is equally important. No point having a good business and dying because you're unhealthy.
For sure, or being in a wheelchair because you're too fat.
Exactly. so let's keep ourselves balanced. So that's half of life, and then family, so important. So any organisation that breaks up family is completely wrong. And social, we're social, we know each other socially, but family, if anything, is the most important thing of all.
Absolutely.
So why should a religion come along?
No entity should be involved in breaking up a family.
Absolutely.
Should it?
To my parents.
Families are hard enough to keep together anyway. You don't need an external force.
Well, it happened to my parents in 1972. They were withdrawn from wrongly by the cult, and I left home. That was the end of that.
And now, of course, their family.
That's happened to me. So at 16, I left home. At 61. They've shoved me out. So complete devastation of family. And I love my kid, love my grandkids to bits. I've been pleading with Garth and Bruce Hales to have them back, to let them come along and see me. Even if I'm not good enough to be in the religion.
Can still be granddad.
Absolutely. So why should family take a second place to a religion? And social. And then personal development, which is learning. You know, I'm learning from you now as you speak. And spiritual, which is, I call it spirit, which is that you're doing to others as you want done to yourself.
It's generally understood across the board, isn't it, as the balance of life, you know?
Yeah.
You need to have
Yes.
all the factors balanced and working to to have a complete life. If one is not working properly,
Yes.
then it makes the other things more difficult.
Exactly. I think spiritual and education are two major facets that are being overlooked in this world we're in. So, you know, I do think education includes, as I say, education about cults, but so people are aware of what goes on and how people try and control them. I think spiritual is all about have sense of the greater. It's about forgiveness, compassion, kindness, love, inclusiveness.
Gratitude.
Yeah, so inclusiveness, not exclusiveness. So that is what my business program sets out, and I would love to take that into all the Brethren businesses. You know, that would be one way they could bring in a bit of healing by inviting me around, paying me to go around the world just teaching them. So we're actually building individuals up in the business to be resistant to coercive control, resistant to servitude and slavery. So they've got their own minds.
Able to recognise it when it's happening.
Yes, and that'll be a much healthier religion than what Hales says, the leader. I'll do the thinking, you do the doing.
Yeah.
It's not very challenging.
That sounds
not much
very
personal development in there, is it?
No, absolutely. That's just pure control, isn't it?
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes. So we mustn't go on too long, but I've got a few issues. Lies and deceit in Parliament, and you know, lies and deceit when you're withdrawing from people. Suicides. You know, shocking number of suicides in the Brethren, and I've met scores.
That's so sad, because
scores have said that they felt like Mick Dover yesterday, many times, the way he's been abused, he wanted to commit suicide.
But that goes so far against everything that you guys are taught, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, as if you commit suicide, if I'm not wrong, if you commit suicide, you don't go to heaven. Is that right?
Well, I don't think so. But I can understand. Yeah,
I've heard.
I've heard that.
As I understood it,
Yeah.
that is a sin.
Yes.
As such.
Yes.
Therefore, you know, you're cutting yourself not just out of the nasty situation you're in that's causing you to feel like that, but you are ruining your eternity by doing it. So that's a huge sacrifice that somebody's driven to that point.
Yes.
Where they would do that.
But you see what they're doing there, they try and cover it all up, cover.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about the individual that commits suicide.
Yes,
You know, that
yeah.
You're in that situation where you've been dumped on so much by the Brethren that you feel that there's no other way out other than to sacrifice your entire eternity as you believe it.
Yes.
You know, surely you guys believe in heaven and want to be in heaven and not in hell.
Yeah.
And as I understood it, as a complete outsider with fairly ignorant, as you know, but in that respect, I thought that was one of a serious sin, and therefore would give you a problem of getting approval into heaven later on if you commit suicide.
Yeah.
And therefore that's an eternal sacrifice you're making.
Well, I believe that
because of the
all
situation that's been
suicides
thrust upon you.
are a result of the doctrine, the separation doctrine, and the punishing doctrine of the cult. So it's not the fault. I wouldn't hold it against anyone that's committed suicide.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
My point is that if you're in a very dark mental place, being caused by the mistreatment and the persecution you've received at the hands of the Brethren, the very last thing you should be doing is committing suicide. We know this because it puts into jeopardy your eternity, as you guys believe it.
Yeah.
So therefore, you know, they're not only ruining your life as you're living now and causing you to feel like that, but the action of doing that, it causes you an eternity of problem rather than fixing any problem, you know?
So we need to fix the religion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
because that's where the
obviously
issue is.
help these people
Yes.
to not feel that they need to commit
Yes.
suicide.
Absolutely. And then all the politics that go on, you know, when the new leader came in, Bruce Hales, he got rid of guys that we loved, like Jim Design from North Dakota, Lloyd Paskovich from Vesta, which is a little place up in the sticks. These guys that the previous leader respected, Bob Thorncroft from Sydney, his local brother. And then he brought his new team in, like Garth, my brother, who suddenly shots fired, took 3 meetings went around the world, and Roy Simonson. Well, these guys are just not in the same league as these guys that we respected. And going back, people like Percy Lyon and names that...
Is it that they're just they're cronies of the new leadership, as opposed to genuinely being respected for their good deeds and correct attitude?
Well, what it means in effect is that all the validation you need is to be a Bruce Hale supporter, and you get money then in gifts from care meetings. You've got money pouring into you, and if you're made nothing of, you just don't get any privileges. Like I didn't hardly ever get. Whenever I got into a fellowship meeting when I was in, I did it through the back door a bit, but I never was on the list, and I was told I mustn't preach or do anything in meetings, no part of the administration. So I was just meant to be a bit of a appendage,
a money
to
generator.
System. Yeah. So I just hate all this, and John Rich and Dick Blackledge, all these top, even my son Jed, men who are promoted by Bruce Hales, and of course they become part of his hierarchy and have to be revered, whether they say right or wrong.
They're clearly being conditioned by him.
Well, it would seem that way.
It would.
Yeah.
But
So I would like them to
as
stop.
an outsider looking in, it sounds like that they're following the line that he wants, and therefore they get the benefits for it.
So I'm saying, look, lads, don't commit suicide as a result of us saying this. Just get real and become as
See
Bruce
what's
Hales
going
told
on.
me.
See what's been done to you.
Bruce Hales told me that his father just wanted to be a brother amongst his local brethren. Well, his hierarchy, just come down and stick with the rank and file.
These guys clearly don't know they've been manipulated.
The hierarchy.
The people you just named are probably very decent people. I don't know any of them personally, but I'm assuming that they're decent people. They're there because they want to do a good job and they want to be right, and they've got this guy at the top telling them how to do a good job. And what you've got to do to do a good job is you've got to undermine that guy, you've got to kick that guy out, you've got to manipulate that family, and you will get your reward in heaven. So therefore, I can understand how they believe that, because they've been closed into this situation where, as a human, as a decent human, you just want to do your best in life. You know that I'm different because I'm an atheist, but I still want to do my best in life. And if I've got a boss there who's telling me to do this and that's the best way to do it, my first reaction is going to be to do it, because I've got a guy with more experience than me telling me that that's the right thing to do. I'll do it, and then maybe I'll see there's something wrong with it and go back and say, right, I did what you said, but it didn't work because, or it could be done better this way. But obviously these guys have got this huge threat of either the promise of eternal reward or the risk of being thrown into the lake of fire. So that puts you in a very awkward position where your tendency would be to follow the leader, follow the guy who's telling me what to do, because he's got the information I don't.
So you're pleading for them, really?
I'm not. I'm defending them a little bit in terms of how they've got into this situation where they are doing this.
Yes.
I'm giving them a chance to still be good people, but misguided.
Yes.
And if you can take a group of people and misguide them, they can be the best people in the world that have got the best intentions, but if they're completely misguided, they're going to do what they've been misguided to do.
So I don't want to be extreme, but let me ask you, Nuremberg trials. The hierarchy of Hitler who shot people, right? Which is what these people.
That's a good example, isn't it? That's a good example, because
they tried to get away with it. Say, oh, we're just doing as we were told.
Yeah.
But they must have known. If you're shooting people dead, they must have. You can't say
that's the point where you would have to put your hand up and say, I think there's a problem with this instruction.
Yes.
And these guys haven't done that. And yes, there is a degree of accountability required because you didn't do that. You shot the people instead of saying, hey, I don't think we should shoot these people.
Yes.
But of course, in that situation, you're in a terrifying situation where if you do that, you're probably going to get shot.
Exactly.
So, these guys are terrified of being shot up and kicked out.
So this is why.
And therefore they follow the line
Yes.
where they probably know they shouldn't be doing,
It's very helpful.
but they're probably afraid.
So
you know?
this is why one of the points I mentioned was inciting a revolution. So these guys who have been shooting people psychologically need to stand up and say, we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And we're going to review all the assembly withdrawals that have happened right back to 1959 and reinstate as necessary, put it right in assembly and compensate. Because financial compensation to people who've been damaged is only righteous, isn't
Absolutely. Especially the people who ended up homeless or in a terrible situation because they've lost everything they worked so hard to achieve.
Yeah. But that's for them to come to. It's not, I think, pay back fourfold. They'll say, what's that saying now? But they've got to come to themselves. If I've harmed you in any way...
It should just be a reasonable and respectful conclusion, shouldn't it?
Yes,
you know?
yes, exactly.
We took your house away, you can have it back. You know, here's your house back. It's been damaged because of this. We're going to pay for that to be fixed. And then you're back to square one. You can carry on with your life from this point.
So in my case, my brother Garth, who's been leading the Leeds meeting under Hales, should simply say, Lance, we'll welcome you back into the business. Business should have nothing to do with the religion.
It is your business.
And you work with your sons and get on well, have your sons along. So that would bring in healing.
And start the process
and
of
then
healing,
if the president leads don't think I'm fit to join them in their church, well, I can go perhaps to a preaching and sit at the back, and if they think I need the gospel, they can preach through the gospel. I am forgiven actually, but nevertheless I'm a sinner saved by grace. But however they want to, but the whole thing needs overhauling, doesn't it?
Well, in simple terms, you probably want to see your friends again, don't you? You know, these people, you've grown up with these people, you've been around them your whole life. They've been effectively brainwashed into shutting you out, and you know, but they're still your friends, you still love them, so you want to hang with them and have lunch with them and stuff, and why should you be denied from doing that? Because somebody at the top has taken exception to you and decided you've reached your critical point of value and it's time to get rid of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's actually quite easily resolved, and then if that happened, what's mutual, and you know, even if I'm not one of them, I could take a remark and say something.
Well, why do you have to be one of them to go and see them?
Yeah,
this is my point.
Yeah,
I as an atheist could walk into any mosque, any synagogue, any church and say, can I just come and have a look and just have a chat with you guys? And I expect to be made welcome.
Yeah.
You know, and of course they're going to try to save me. They're going to try and teach me their theories, and but I should expect that if I'm walking into there.
Yes,
and that's why I don't go to those places, because I don't need those kind of conversations. You know? But if I wanted that kind of conversation, I would expect to be very welcome in those places.
Yes.
Even though I'm not one of them.
No.
You see what I mean?
No. Yes.
Of course, assuming I would be respectful, I wouldn't be going in and arguing with every point, because I'm not going to come into your house to argue with you about what you do in your house. You know, I'm coming into your house to respect what you do in your house.
Yes.
So if you were to want to attend the meetings and the services in a respectful way, you should be very welcome.
Yes.
Because these guys are your friends.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Brilliant. Well, let's conclude. I'm just going to go over this letter which has gone from my lawyer to my lawyers who've been with me right from the beginning, to when I was shut up, 2017, right through to today. And it's an appeal to my brother Garth, a moral appeal, representing so I've invoiced Garth for £2.5 million, and the lawyer's making it very clear to Garth, this represents the money which I consider I've lost or been forced to expend since 2017 dealing with legal challenges, claims and threats to pursue claims which I've received from people and entities connected to the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. And
all the false charges they set against you.
Yeah. So this is based on a moral obligation which Lance believes you owe Garth, which in turn is supported by fundamental Christian values and principles which themselves are derived from Scripture. And so the background was that I helped two members of the Brethren, that helped loads, half a dozen at least.
So it was based on these specific two members,
One of them was in prison and suffering with depression, the other was being bullied by his father. In the letter, Mr. Hales to Lance, Mr. Hales, who clobbered me basically, indicated that my efforts to help were in some way offensive to him and showed personal disregard for his own feelings, particularly as Mr. Hales seemed to believe that Lance had acted independently when Lance had in fact worked with Brethren members local to the two members who he'd sought to help. So I did work with the local members.
Yeah.
But they weren't the ones that he'd appointed in those places. That was his gripe. Lance was shocked, devastated to receive the letter from Hales, as he was committed and devoted member of the Brethren and had raised his children as such, and he did not believe that he had done anything wrong. But Mr. Hales told Lance he must be submissive and accept what he had said or face consequences, but Lance found it impossible to do so, not least as Hales had not explained what feelings Lance had offended and how he had done so.
He's a bit precious, isn't he, getting offended over there in Australia about you helping some guy in England who's in trouble?
Yeah, but he has to be in control of everything.
Well, clearly.
Dictatorship.
And the thing I pulled out there is how you dutifully taught your children to wholly respect the Brethren, thus preparing them unwittingly to be brainwashed by the Brethren and be taken control of and taken away from you.
Yes.
And you effectively, unwittingly handed your children over to that system.
Yes, exactly.
Which is what you were taught to do.
Exactly.
Which is how they perpetuate this nightmare.
And that's exactly what happened with the parents.
Yeah, exactly.
They did the same
parents
thing.
dutifully taught you how to respect it, then they were kicked out and you left them and went back.
Exactly.
Which
shocking.
is awful, yeah.
Yes. Lance was consequently disciplined at the instigation of Hugh Garth and the other senior elders of the Horsforth Gospel Hall Trust, and received 27 priestly visits and 3 full congregational public rebukes. Lance was shut up by Hugh and Roger Edwards, who persuaded the Brethren to do it on the 17th of March 17, in order to leave the family home.
I still think it wasn't his idea. I still think he was made to do this.
By Bruce Hales.
Yeah.
This is the last occasion on which Lance saw many members of his immediate family he was withdrawn from in October 17. Lance asked Roger Edwards in 2017 October to convey to the Leeds Assembly that he didn't accept the judgment, which was, I was told, was I'd been unfaithful to my wife and gone in for the world in the fullest sense. I never ever had an affair with anybody else. Anyway, I don't want to start trying to defend myself.
Well, you don't need to, do you? You have the truth on your side.
Yeah. From March 17, Lance has been the subject of numerous claims, threats of claims, and legal actions and processes instigated by people within and entities controlled by the PBCC. He was also forced to fight with his family in relation to his interest in the family business Weavable. This has personally cost in excess of £1.5 million in legal fees, and has left him without connection to his business, his former community, and those members of his family who remain PBCC adherents. So the obligation for Garth is this: as well as being Lance's brother, you are the most senior elder in the Horsforth Gospel Hall and have held this role for the entirety of the period relevant to the events referred to above.
He could have defended you, couldn't he?
That's just what they come on to say.
Yeah, oh,
Thank you. Yeah. Lance holds you responsible for much of what has happened to him over the course of the last 9 years. This is based on your initial failure to protect Lance after receiving the Hales letter, followed then by the part you played in the assembly discipline received by Lance, up to and including with withdrawal and the events which followed thereafter.
He's clearly afraid of the same treatment being done to him,
Yes.
because if it was my brother who'd received a letter like that,
Yeah.
he would have been straight on the phone to me going,
Yeah.
bro, we got a problem,
Yeah.
they're saying this about you,
So Garth,
how are we going to defend you?
Come and talk to me. Let's work together, Garth, and let's sort Hales out.
Yeah. Let's weed out the bad egg here.
Yeah. The judgment was clearly wrong, particularly in circumstances when Lance's actions were genuine and well-intentioned efforts to help. This is my lawyers, they know it inside out.
Yeah.
This is a legal state, you know. Despite this, you did not intervene on Lance's behalf, just like you said. On the contrary, you instigated many of the disciplinary measures received by Lance, leading up to and including the shutting up and Lance's excommunication.
I'm convinced he's done this out of fear for his own safety and his
that's
own
very
immediate family.
helpful for me to see that. Yeah,
I think,
Yeah. In terms of the events following Lance's excommunication, Lance has a strong belief that you were involved in all of the claims, threats of claims and actions that followed. The following supports that belief. You were involved in instructing the solicitors when the sexual abuse case came against me, before I even knew about it. You attended the family dispute resolution meeting October 19. You were involved in instructing Kingsley Napley and Farrer & Co. to write various letters to Lance. Your son Neil supported the prosecution of Lance for alleged harassment and reported Lance for breach of bail conditions, resulting in Lance being imprisoned overnight. That's just, I mean, he could have just called me.
Absolutely.
It was a mistake.
Yeah.
But the judge had to deal with it.
They're terrified. They've been taught to be afraid of the consequences.
Yeah, well, that's helpful you point that out, and that gives them a...
They're humans at the end of the day, aren't they? They are your brothers and your family, you know.
Yeah.
They
So
can't
then-
just twist and,
No.
and just hate you suddenly overnight,
No.
you know, without
Yeah. And
without
my lawyer,
being manipulated in some way.
So to support it all, my lawyer quotes scripture, like make peace quickly with the adverse opponent while you're in the way with him, lest he deliver you to the judge. Or dare any of you having a matter against another go to law before the unrighteous. But brother goes to law against brother, that before unbelievers. This is 1 Corinthians 6, 1 to 8. Now therefore it is already an utter failure for you, you go to law against one another. Why do you not rather suffer wrong? Why not rather let yourself be defrauded? No, you yourselves do wrong and defraud, and you do these things to your brethren.
Sort of backing up what I just said about my brother would phone me immediately and say, dude, this has just arrived, we need to deal with it, you know, how can we protect you?
Yeah. And then so just gone. Lance believes that he was husband of one wife, brought his family up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Then I sent a little story called The Student's Trick to him, which illustrates the joy and rejoicing that a generous spirit brings, especially towards the poor. And then I said I don't accept that I'm a heretic. That's what I've been judged to be. I think, oh, I'm a heretic. I don't accept it.
We're lucky it's not 200 years ago, they would have burnt you for it.
Well, it would have been a miscarriage of judgment.
Yeah, but you'd have been burnt at the stake for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Martin. It's been
Insightful.
It's been helpful to
interesting.
me to see you sticking up for my brother. You feel it feels a measure of ignorance or fear, really.
Absolutely, well, absolutely. You know, you know me. I believe everybody's good until they give me a reason to not believe that. You know, and I think these guys have just been so brainwashed and so completely manipulated, and potentially do believe that you're evil, but not through their own power of thought.
No,
through the thoughts that have been put into their heads by others.
Yes, very insightful.
You
Well,
know?
perhaps the Leeds Assembly would invite you along just to help them to see if you're able to
See apply a bit of logic to the situation.
That could
Think outside the box.
Yeah. Much appreciated. Thank you.
No problem, buddy.